Welcome to Reframe Your Mindset for Success. With me today is Damian Hughes. How are you today, Damian?
Paul, I'm really good, thank you, mate. It's lovely to be on and chatting with you. So thank you for having me.
Great stuff. And I know obviously you've been on the podcast before, so it's great to have you back. What have you been up to this week? Have you been busy?
This week, yeah, it's been well, actually that phrase you talk about there is something that I've tried to make a habit of breaking this year. That how often do you find yourself saying to people, "Oh, I've been busy," and it's often like a badge of honor, isn't it? Where we wear it and go, "Yeah, I've been busy," and that's supposed to be a good thing. And
Yeah,
it struck me at the end of last year. I thought I'm going to stop saying I've been busy
right.
and start saying, yeah, I've been quite productive. So yeah, I've been quite productive, but I've not been busy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Good. There's a change in habit straight away. So, um,
Well, I just think, sorry to talk over you, Paul. I just think, like, I noticed it that I was sort of saying it as if it was something that should be lauded. Do you know what I mean? And I thought,
yeah,
actually, like being busy either indicates that you're not managing your time properly, you've not got an ability to set boundaries. You
yeah,
know what I mean? You're chaotic. Like, actually, there's lots of negative associations with it. Yet in our world, this idea of busyness gives the idea of a bit of self-importance. And I thought, I don't want to be regarded as self-important, and I'm
yeah,
trying not to be chaotic. So I thought I'm just going to stop using that phrase just and it's more for my sake, not for anybody else's. But
yeah.
yeah, but you're right, it's a habit I've tried to break.
Yeah. It's interesting because I went through a phase where for some reason I kept saying I'm surviving. I'm surviving
Yeah, yeah,
as if
yeah,
like that was a good thing, and it was kind of a little bit tongue in cheek, I'm surviving. But then I thought to myself, it sounds really negative, though. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
I'm surviving. Oh, I'm just about to.
Keeping my head above water.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I
Yeah.
thought, but no, I'm not. Instead, it's like no, I'm enjoying life at the moment. You know what I mean? So why not say how you're feeling about what you're doing rather than going, this kind of what was drumming down how I was really feeling. Do you know what I mean? It's just
Mate, I find this stuff on language, like the semantics and the stuff like that. I find it utterly absorbing. Do you? I
yeah,
remember
definitely.
interviewing the comedian Sarah Pascoe, and she had this real fascination with language and almost like having like a better emotional lexicon. That was the way she described it. And what she meant was, she said, like, she used the example of she was watching Michael McIntyre doing his Saturday night show, and
Yeah.
she was like, "Oh, I'm really jealous of him. Like, why has he got a Saturday night show and I've not?" And then she went, "I'm not jealous at all." She went, "Because jealous implies that he shouldn't be doing it and I should." She said, "What I am is envious because I'd like to have a Saturday night show. And it doesn't mean that I'm pulling him down, but I would like a show like that." And she said, and once she changed that language from jealous to envious,
Yeah.
it became more empowering. That she went, then she could phone her agent up and go, "How do I get a Saturday night show?" And work back from there. So the envy was actually a productive emotion. Jealousy was a destructive emotion. And I
Right.
think
Makes
when you
sense.
start thinking about having like a better emotional lexicon, do you know what I mean? Like, rather than, like,
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
"I'm
So,
surviving, I'm getting
yeah,
by," I'm going, actually, no, I'm in a place where I'm really just enjoying things at the moment, or,
yeah,
I'm in a
yeah,
place
yeah.
of quiet
Definitely.
contentment. Just
Yeah.
having different phrases for it, sort of to
Um,
accurately describe it.
Definitely. It kind of reminds me of it's like switching to an abundance mindset. Abundance mindset is for me, there's room for everybody. So if he's got a Saturday night show, good luck to him. Do you know what I mean? He's obviously
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
well. And you go, that abundance is, well, there's room for all of us at the end of the day. If you really put your mind to it, then maybe that's something that you can do. So, it's when you have that, it's a lack of, isn't it? The lack of mindset. I'm just relating it to something that I talk about, which is very similar.
I think that's such a lovely way of viewing the world, isn't it? That, like, another great phrase I've heard is like, are you familiar with the term pronoia?
Oh no,
So,
no.
so we're all familiar with the idea of being paranoid, where
Yeah,
you believe that everyone's out to get you.
yeah,
But being pronoid, you
yeah.
view that everybody's out to help you.
Oh, okay, I like
When you
that.
just make that subtle
Yeah,
shift, you
yeah,
go,
yeah,
suddenly,
yeah,
if you believe that everyone's out to help you, well,
yeah,
you start demonstrating help to others. So your abundance mindset suddenly becomes something that you go, "Well, how can I help you, mate?" Or,
yeah,
or like, "I'll make more room at the table for you to come and eat," rather than just
yeah,
shielding my plate and stopping somebody else doing it. I
Yeah.
think
Do you know
again,
what?
being
I'd
more
heard that. I'd
paranoid,
heard that before. That's really good. Yeah, I like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, but it fits with your abundance mindset. Just a very subtle tweak,
Yeah.
but it shifts your whole perspective, doesn't it?
Totally, absolutely. Well, as you know, we're talking about the big idea on the podcast. So,
Yeah.
you, I know you've published the recent book. So, the big idea that you bring in today, and I know you've spoken to lots of elite performers, and I guess it's kind of a what surprised you the most about the way they achieve success, and that's come out in the recent book. So, what is the big idea that you've been talking about recently?
The big idea has been this idea of a concept called micro habits,
Yeah,
and what and where it stemmed from is that we've done. I co-host a podcast series called High Performance with my mate Jay Comfrey, and we've interviewed some incredible people from the likes of Usain Bolt through to Matthew McConaughey through to Stephen Gerrard.
yeah.
I said that through gritted teeth there because I know I know my audience well. Through to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer very quickly throw in. But and then through to Keely Hodgkinson, through to Dame Stephanie Shirley, a 93-year-old philanthropist. We've interviewed some incredible people. And what I realized was that so much of what they talk about and their success wasn't achieved through big leaps of faith. It was just quiet moments of making a decision that ultimately becomes a habit. So what I wanted to do was almost like drill down a little bit deeper into these interviews and find out what are the habits that these people do that they're saying to you, this makes a quantifiable difference in terms of my performance. So I was sort of playing around with this idea. And then one of my habits is that I love taking my dog Teddy for long walks in the evening where uh, I don't take anything. I don't listen to anything. I literally just walk with me, Teddy, and my thoughts in my head. And there was two ideas that I had on top of this big idea of micro habits. One, I'd interviewed the author Lee Childs, you know, the guy who wrote the Jack
Yeah,
Reacher books.
yeah, yeah,
And when I was preparing for the interview with Lee, I read my first Jack Reacher novel, and I really enjoyed it. But what I really enjoyed was the really short chapters that they
yeah,
are. So it gives this idea of pace and
yeah,
energy.
yeah. I
And
like
I'd never read a book that had really succinct short chapters, and I thought I really love that idea of doing a book with short chapters.
yeah,
And then I also noticed as well, I don't know if you're the same as me, that I think my attention span is getting worse. That
yeah,
say
definitely.
like
Yeah,
20 years ago, I
yeah,
could lock in and focus on something for a
yeah,
lot longer than I think I can now. So I thought the short chapters sort of are the way I'd like to go. And I was thinking, how can I write short chapters about micro habits that explain who it is that shares it, explain what how they claim it works for them, and then go and explore the scientific papers that validate what they're saying, that and then make it really practical so anyone could read the book and go, I can do that. Here's an idea that I can take.
yeah,
So I then decided to just explore it by going into the interviews and delving for these micro habits and then found them everywhere. Every interview we did, people were saying, this makes a real difference to me. And the thing is, like many of them seem like they're common sense, where you go, yeah, that's obvious, but they've made them common practice and then just committed to doing them day after day, month after month, year after year,
yeah.
and as a consequence,
Made a
they've
difference.
achieved their definition of high performance. But
Yeah.
I thought, how can I sort of capture these and share them? So that's the idea of the book, Micro Habits, and that's what I've been talking about since I started writing it 18 months or so ago.
Right. Okay. Okay. And it is a great book. I've read through it. Fantastic insights.
Thank
So,
you, mate.
what's the we talk about a micro habits and a normal habits. What's the difference then?
So a micro habit is something that you can boil down into three composite parts, right? So, and you need to be intentional about this. So the first thing is it needs to be really, really small, right?
Yeah.
It needs to be something that that is really that's really small to be able to get your head around. The second one is it needs to be something you can understand. It needs to be speedy, so you need to be able to understand it or
Yeah.
implement it within 5 minutes. You don't need
Okay.
to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And then the other one is it's got to be really simple. It's got to be so obvious that you can integrate it into your routines and habit. without without having to change anything else around it. Because if it's small, simple, and speedy,
Yeah.
that will then be the catalyst to then become a routine or an autopilot. So that's really the distinction between that and a normal habit. Like if you think of like brushing your teeth, you do it automatically. You don't stop and question it. You just tend to do it. You feel like
Yeah.
something's missing if you've left
Yeah.
the house and you've not brushed your teeth every day.
Yeah.
Brushing your teeth is a micro habit. It's small, it's simple, and it's speedy to do. So that's the difference between that and another habit that so that might be the opposite of it. A habit like that might be require a lot of investment of time or energy or focus. Micro habits are the opposite.
The opposite. It's interesting talking about brushing your teeth. You got me thinking about we had the tap heads, so we got a new bathroom suite put in, and they
Yeah.
put the hot water and cold water the opposite way round.
Oh, mate.
My God, it was like the most difficult because you're conditioned, aren't you, to doing something the same over and over again.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, oh, it took so long to get used to it the opposite way round. There you go. And it's just
How,
because it's
how like how often did you scold yourself and things
oh,
like
loads, honestly. It was like, so you go,
that?
brushing your teeth's a little bit simpler, isn't it? It's once ago, you just got to find your own toothbrush at the end of the day. So, but it was an absolute nightmare, really was a nightmare. Okay, so on the basis of then, because I know you've interviewed hundreds of top performers, what micro habits showed up most consistently from the study that you did?
Oh, I mean, that's a brilliant question. I think like some of the well, if I give you some examples of them, right? Like making decisions. Let's take an example like that. Like it's estimated we all make about 10,000 decisions every single day, right?
Yeah,
And about 70 to 80% of them, psychologists would tell you, are done on autopilot. You don't really stop and think about them. So the example I offered to illustrate that point is think about when you go to some posh coffee shop, right? And you walk in and they think of the questions they're asking you. They go, what size cup do you want? What type of coffee bean would you like? What style do you want the coffee made? Do you want milk with it, Paul? Do you want skim, semi, soy, full fat, almond? Maybe none at all. Are you going to have syrup, sugar, sweeteners with it? And
yeah,
all those decisions are coming at you thick and fast. So that's how it very quickly scaffolds up to 10,000 decisions. But what you do is you go, I'll just have a latte, please. Why? Because the chances are that's what you ordered the last 10 times. So
yeah,
you've not really made a decision. You've just been on an autopilot. So we don't need to worry about small decisions like that are relatively insignificant in our day. But sometimes we need to know how do we break ourselves out of that autopilot so we really switched on and focused on decisions. So I interviewed this amazing woman called Sabina Cohen Hatton. She's the chief firefighter down at Sussex Fire Brigade.
yeah,
But she's got this fascinating backstory. She grew up as homeless and then sort of made her way into the fire service, become really successful there. But she's also a neuroscientist as well.
oh wow,
And she
yeah,
studied decision making under pressure.
yeah,
So she talks about if you can get into the micro habit of asking yourself three questions before you make a big decision,
yeah,
she's proven from her research of firefighters, the quality of your decision making increases by about 80%. So the three questions she encourages us to ask when we've got a big decision to make is, what do I want to happen?
yeah,
What do I think is going to happen? And how do the benefits outweigh the risk of making it happen? Right. So if you think about it, the example is that you might go, right, you might be faced with a really tempting piece of cake, right? And you're deciding that you're just going to focus on eating healthily, right?
yeah,
So you go, what do I want to happen? You go, I
yeah,
want to get stuck into that chocolate cake because it looks absolutely brilliant.
yeah,
What do I think is going to happen? Go, I'll really enjoy tucking into that cake while I'm doing it, but then about half an hour afterwards, I'll start to feel rotten for doing it. The sugar spike will wear off. I'll feel it sat in my tummy. I'll
yeah,
then decide that, oh, I can't do any exercise today. So, how do the benefits outweigh the risks of doing it? You probably go, well, it just forces your brain to zoom out a bit further and go, you know what, I'll probably leave it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
she offers those as examples. That's a micro habit of how we can all start making better decisions. There's another micro habit that I've seen from some of our guests, like Kevin Sinfield. He was the Leeds Rhinos captain. He won, I think it was 7 or 8 Super League grand finals, but he now works for the England rugby union team, as well as doing the fundraising for motor neuron disease. Kevin's whole thing told us about his superpower or his micro habit, if we use that language. He said he learned it when he was 11. He went to a trial game for a rugby match. He said, and he looked around, and every other kid on his team, he said, he's faster than me, he's fitter than me, he's better than me, he's more skillful. And he went, how am I going to make my mark here? So he decided that his micro habit was he was going to be the chief encourager. He was just going to walk round and encourage every member of his team. He was going to keep reminding them of what they were good at and telling them about, and just keep applauding them and clapping them and encouraging them,
Yeah.
regardless of what went on in the game. Now he says, and he's doing himself a bit of a disservice here, but these are his words. He went, I made a 20-year career out of being the chief encourager.
Right.
I literally, now
Yeah.
the research on that says that when you encourage other people, when you get into that habit of going, Paul, you're doing great here. Paul, that's really good. Paul, I really like your questions. You feel better by somebody telling you that, but the person that offers you the compliment feels better as well. It's called the helper's high.
Yeah.
And it means that when you feel better, you're more likely to perform better as well. So it's almost like the ultimate two-way benefit
Yeah.
that you
Definitely.
feel better and they're likely to perform even better, but the person that offers it does as well. So these are, I mean, they're just two examples of
Yeah.
some really small micro habits that they're small, simple, and speedy to implement.
Yeah.
But what I hope the readers of the book will understand is there's lots of science that validates it that goes, this can make your performance better.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. It's really interesting. There's just a couple of questions on what you said there that just come to mind. The first one is I'm just relating it to so my two younger boys play kids football
Yeah,
and they've been managed in lots of different ways, right? And I'm a dad who stands on the sideline and doesn't get involved. I don't say too much, right?
yeah,
Because I just don't think you can. The manager's there to manage the team. But it's amazing the difference that you see with children when you see those negative strokes compared to positive strokes. So if they were just more like chief encouragers, the managers, they just get better results from kids. Do you know what I mean? But it doesn't always happen because some of the managers, it's like you're playing in the World Cup. Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
it's kids football. It's kids football. One of the things that did when asked though is that on the basis of talking about the cake, right? And I know last time we caught up, we talked a little bit about kindness. So did any of that come out with, like it being maybe a micro habit around being kind to yourself at all?
Oh yeah. I mean, like this has been like a huge theme that we've seen. Like there's there's a guy called Greg Hoffman I interviewed once. He's the chief marketeer at Nike, right? So he's the guy behind all these iconic adverts that most people can remember when you say the name of Nike. Greg Hoffman was like the brains behind it. And he had this really beautiful phrase that resonated. He said, failure is the price of ambition. So he went, so if you're ambitious, whatever it is you want to achieve,
Yeah,
he said, failure is the price of it. You're going to have to fail at different stages before you can achieve your ambition. And he said he would tell everybody that worked with him that was the mantra. And he said, because the implied bit there is that we then need to be kind to ourselves, that when we fail,
yeah,
how we respond to that failure is key. So if we come in with a more of a cruel or a taunting mentality, what have you done that for? How stupid was that?
yeah,
You can't learn because that forces your brain to downshift. You go into a defensive reactive mindset. Your ability to see the world with perspective, your ability to take on board that alternative viewpoint all becomes severely diminished.
yeah,
Whereas if you go, no, we expected that you were going to fail, but let's work out how we failed, why we failed, and what are we going to do better next time. There's
yeah,
no threat to you there. So your ability to be able to learn becomes so much faster. And in this day and age, it's your ability to learn and the speed of it that is going to be your ultimate competitive advantage.
yeah,
But it comes back to you have to learn to be kind. And if you have to role model kindness to yourself before you can role model it to anybody else. I mean, this was a lesson that I'd learned probably about, well, 16 years ago now. My son's coming up for 17 this summer. But when I first became a dad, I remember sort of thinking, how am I going to do this? Like, there's no manual for it. There's no, like, you've never done it before.
yeah,
And you sort of like reflecting on how you're going to do it. And I spoke to somebody that said to me a line that really, I felt like I'd been punched in the guts. She said to me, how would you feel if somebody spoke to your son in the way that you speak to yourself?
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it was probably the first time I caught myself hearing that inner voice and hearing, what is it actually saying? And I'll be honest, Paul, most of it was often caustic,
yeah,
pretty fucking cruel,
yeah,
pretty and certainly unkind.
yeah,
And the idea that anybody would ever speak to my son like that left me bereft. The idea, I
yeah,
was thinking I'd kill anybody if they ever
yeah,
spoke
yeah, yeah,
to him like that. And the point this person that asked me the question said was, you have to role model it. You have to role model
internally,
it.
internally.
So, so
Yeah,
if you don't do it for yourself, you can't ask
yeah,
anybody else to do it for yourself.
yeah,
So, over well before those 16 years, but over the last 16 and a bit years, I've made loads of mistakes. I've sort of made loads of errors. I've made
yeah,
loads of cock ups. And I'll talk to my son about them. I'll say, "Oh, I made this, and this is what I learned from it. And I felt a bit silly when I did this, but this is how I've sort of responded to it because I want to equip him with some of those same skills. You know
yeah,
what I mean? To
yeah,
to
yeah,
allow him to think, right, well, because he's going to make mistakes, he's going to make errors,
yeah.
and
Okay.
and
Yeah,
I can't protect him from that, and I don't want to protect him from that, but I
yeah.
want to give him the tools to be able to respond to that, not to react to it.
Do you know what's interesting? Talking about the kids that I find is there's a certain amount of hand holding with kids, but then when they get to a certain age or a certain point, for me, being able to show trust and accountability, so you give them trust, you give them accountability, and let them make their own mistakes, and that's fine. And you go, because that's the way I learned. I learned through making mistakes, trial and error
100%.
practice, whatever it might be.
Oh, mate, like we've been debating this, my wife and I, quite a lot because my son's 16, my daughter's 13, and so my daughter's just recently got a phone saying the last 12 months or so. And again, you're a dad, you're thinking about your daughter, like like being quite protective. And we were debating whether we would, like you can put these trackers on the phone to see where they are.
Yeah,
And we made the decision not to do it. Now, there's no judgment on anyone that does, but we said to both the kids, we're going to trust you. So if
yeah,
you tell us where you're going, we're just going to trust that that's where you're going.
yeah, yeah,
But if you don't,
yeah. It's on you.
one,
Yeah,
yeah, it's on you, and we can't help you. Do you know what I mean? So if we
yeah,
we think you're there and you're not, we can't help you. But more important than that, our trust in you becomes eroded. And but
yeah,
the more like trust is like a bank account, we have to keep doing what we say we'll do and just keep
yeah,
backing it up. And the more we do that, the stronger
yeah,
that bank account and the
yeah,
stronger the bonds of trust
yeah,
become.
yeah.
But you're right. Yeah, I think sometimes it's hard though, isn't it? It's hard to
Yeah,
step
yeah,
back and
yeah. I mean,
so I'm
I'm
saying the
laughing a little
theory. I
bit.
find
I'm
it
laughing a
really
little bit
tough.
inside. Yeah, I'm like, they're meant to be back by 6, and when it gets to half 6, you're like, where are they? It's like,
Yeah.
what are they up to? And
I'm very conscious. I sound like a gobshite. I'm saying this, and I'm sort of. I'm having the conversations me and my wife have when the kids are not there. So
yeah,
the
yeah,
theory sounds great, and then when they're
yeah.
not there, you're like, "Where were you? What were you
Yeah.
doing?"
And I think it's really interesting the different level of I guess trust and care from a mother's perspective to a father's perspective, because I'm
Yeah,
just more laid back. Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and Rachel say to me sometimes, "Have you not thought of?" And I'm like, I just don't think of things that way. It's just because a father's mindset, I think, is a little bit different to a mother's, because I think mothers tend to be a little bit more, it's
Nurturing.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely, the okay and all that, and
I'll
that's
tell you a brilliant book,
that's
Paul,
fine.
to have a look at. Like, because you touched on a really powerful point here, and it's probably my most gifted book over the last 3 years or so. Is by the Australian psychologist Steve Biddulph. The book is called Manhood.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
I've never
And
heard of
especially as a
it.
father of boys as well,
Yeah.
have a read of it, right?
Yeah.
It's such a brilliant book that I think what you're describing there, like not that you were doing this, but so often we can diminish our role in our kids' lives of, like that you're saying, oh, I'm more laid back and that, but that's really important. The fact that your presence is there, the fact that you're stood
Yeah.
on the touch line,
Yeah.
don't don't diminish it or underestimate the power of having male role models
Being there. Yeah.
in your life. like he talks about this story, right? And this really sort of haunted me a little bit when I read it in the book. That in the 1970s, Mattel, so the makers of like the Barbie dolls, they decided to launch a range of family dolls, and it was called the Heart Family.
Yeah.
And when they started to test it with kids, what they realized, so the Hart family was a mum, a dad, and two kids, so
Yeah.
a collection of dolls. And what they found is when the kids were playing with it, they'd play with the mum and the kid dolls, and the dad doll would get put on the side. And when they did the focus study groups and said, why's your dad over there? They went, oh yeah, dad's never around, he's always at work.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
So
Yeah.
that's like heartbreaking in its own way. But then what
Totally.
Mattel did in response to the focus study groups with the kids is
Yeah.
they produced Action Man. So their only way of being able to produce a
Yeah.
male role model in these kids' lives was to give them big muscles,
Yeah. And make them out
yeah,
do something.
and
Yeah.
make them a killing machine,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you go, so then what Steve Biddle offers in his book is we've almost got this warped view of what males do in our society, that you're emotionless,
Yeah.
you sort of you're the provider, you
Yeah.
walk around with this thing. And this is not a slight on anybody, but this is often like a mental model that
Yeah.
many of us have and go, well, I'm not that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, well, I was recently chatting about that Manosphere
Yeah.
documentary thing, the Louis Theroux one.
Yeah.
And again, it shows you like what the absent. I was reading an interview with Louis through about it, and he was like, all the guys that he interviewed, these ones coming out with all their misogynistic stuff and
Yeah.
their sort of homophobic stuff, and this idea of you're only worth something if you're worth something. Louis Theroux made the observations that most of these blokes doing it didn't have a male role model in their lives. It was
Yeah.
almost like they were trying to plug a gap
Yeah.
in terms of what a man was or what
Yeah.
a male figure was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I've just found it fascinating over the last couple of years, sort of observing it and reflecting on our role of being a dad in our
Yeah.
kids' lives.
Yeah.
Because, like
Yeah.
Louis Theroux made the point, and I thought, oh, I can relate to this. He was like, you imagine that, like, if you're a kid and you see your dad, you know what I mean? You're like us, you're in our 50s, you've got your aches and pains, but you're there every day, right? And they see your fragility, they see like all sides of you. And then you go on the internet and you see some guy with big muscles driving a Lamborghini car telling you that, you
Yeah.
know,
This is how you should be,
that
man. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that this is how to be a
Yeah.
man. Your
Yeah.
kids are going, hang on, who
Yeah.
don't want to listen to
Yeah,
him?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny as that. I think generationally as well, because I look at like the likes of my dad and the generation of man back then. It
Yeah,
was a little bit different to now because of the way society's changed, positive psychology and all of that. But I look at it and go, some of the behaviors that I'll display, I could hide certain behaviors and I go, the thing for me, one of the most important things is that I'm present more than I've ever been because I work from home. And I
yeah,
think presence, even if you're working but you're around, is a good thing, right? And being able to answer the door to the kids, and being there, and how was your day and all that. It's amazing because I always used to be in the office. I always used to travel. And I'll look at that, but also the behaviors that we'll watch a film, right? And if it's sad, right, I'm like a type of person who will go
loving.
see
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
I don't mind. I'm like right, and you go. So I could hide that from my boys because maybe it's not manly, and I'm not action man. But my viewpoint is that that's not the right thing to do. Them seeing that I can be emotional in that way is a good thing. Do you know what I mean? Setting the example, and you go. But the way I was brought up in a way, my dad was great. We went to match and all of that, but it was just different. Do you know
yeah,
what I mean? Men weren't maybe allowed to show that kind of emotion, and I think it's good that you can demonstrate those signature behaviors, or maybe call them micro habits, but whatever. In some respects, to set an example for our kids going forwards that it's okay. That's okay. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
To feel
yeah.
things, to be able to display emotion. So that's
Well,
just
I read this. There's this really beautiful poem that a mate of mine in Ireland sent it to me um, a couple of months or so ago, and I read it at the time, and I was on the train, and I nearly welled like I welled up. I thought, I want to cry here when I was reading it. It's by a guy called Dara Fleming, right? And it's called "If I Have Boys, I'll Teach Them to Be Dangerous Men."
right.
Right, and if I can read it to you, I'll just get it
Yeah,
up, right? Because
yeah,
it's a beautiful poem. Um, Here we go. If I ever have boys, they'll be dangerous men. They'll smile at dogs and children and be a tonic to friends. They'll send flowers to their mothers just because. And they'll be a shoulder for many when the world is too much. My boys will know that vulnerability is strength. They won't bottle anger. They'll learn how to express. They won't let pride be the reason they hide, wearing masks while they're hurting inside. No, my boys will be dangerous men. They won't stay silent even when it's uncomfortable for them. They'll learn that their actions are more effective than words, but they'll use their voices to amplify the unheard. They'll know that love isn't something to perform. They'll see beauty in all its forms. My boys won't grow learning to emotionally hide. They'll reshape masculinity into something they like. Make it softer to touch. They'll know that who they are and know that being a man doesn't mean carrying the burden alone. They'll learn that an emotional man is a man fully grown. They won't settle everything with violent swings. They'll live in truth even when that truth stings. So yeah, if I ever have boys, they'll be dangerous men. But the danger they'll be won't be the one society meant.
Fantastic.
How beautiful is that?
That's amazing. And that for me, that just sums up completely what, the example that I'd like to think that, you try to set within reason.
Yeah, massively. But that's exactly what you've just said. Like, crying at the sad film on the telly,
Yeah.
standing there on the touchline and watching them sort of try and fail and then try a bit smarter next time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Being
Yeah.
present
Totally. Totally.
and letting them see your work ethic, all of this stuff. It, I suppose if we link it back to micro habits, it's the boring stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's not
Yeah.
sexy. It doesn't scream. It's
Yeah.
not Instagrammable. It's
Yeah.
the boring stuff, but it's
Yeah.
the boring stuff that are the micro habits that
Totally.
ultimately
Yeah.
allow people to flourish at their own level.
Do you know, I look at it as well with the kids is the nudge, right? So you go, they play the game of football, and that, you see it that some people might berate, they might be critical, they might praise whatever. I'll come back and I'll go, what went well? Let's focus on that first. Yeah, what did you enjoy? What went well? And do you want any advice? If you want advice,
Oh,
I'll give I'll
brilliant.
give, I'll give you the. If you don't, it's fine. 'Cause sometimes they're not in the mood for it. You go, okay, well, it's fine. Just let me know if you do want it. Then
Yeah, yeah.
and I go, right, to me, you need to work a little bit more with your left foot. That's it. That's
There you
all.
go.
I don't know if you're saying
I'll
it.
tell you, like we interviewed Hector Bellerin. He's like the Catalan footballer that came at Barcelona, then signed for Arsenal, and then I think he's at Sevilla now or somewhere like that, or Real Betis.
Yeah,
I'm not sure where, but wait, they're like what struck me was like he's speaking to us so eloquently and powerfully in his third language, right? And
yeah,
he was talking about how he'd had to educate his own mum and dad when he was a sort of teenage footballing prodigy. And he was like, "You need to ask me better questions." And they were like, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, when I get home from the match, your first question is always, how did he get on?"
yeah,
And he's like, "Why is the result of a 14-year football match significant to you? Why do you want to know that?" And I
yeah,
suppose it's like an automatic question that
yeah,
most of us would ask.
yeah,
And then it was like, "So what's a micro habit we can have here?" And he's like, "Well, ask me, did I enjoy myself? Because
yeah.
if I did, I'll go back next week. You won't need to force me. Then
Exactly.
maybe ask me, what did I learn today that shows that I'm coachable, but also I'm being coached? Then maybe make your third question, how did you contribute to being a good teammate? Because that shows that I've got a social intelligence that is playing out in sort of in the real world. And then maybe make your fourth question: did you win?
Yeah,
Right? But
yeah, yeah, yeah,
oh, but that's another example of a micro habit of just stop asking the same questions and expecting a different result. Do you know
yeah,
what I mean? Like start
yeah,
asking better
exactly.
questions
Yeah,
that elicit a better quality of thinking that ultimately leads to a better quality of answer.
yeah. That's great advice. It really is. And I look at it at the moment and just think, if you ask kids questions, they'll either be willing to share or not. Do you know what I mean? But that's great advice, amazing.
But yeah, but then again, we have to get into the micro habit of if they're not willing to share, that like I hear lots of coaches and leaders say this to me that go, "Oh, I've got a really quiet group," and I say, "Have you recruited introverts then?"
Yeah,
Was that a deliberate strategy? Because if it is, that's fine because the way they're processing and the way they'll answer, it will appear quiet in the environment you're setting. And most leaders will go, "No, no, no, I've not even thought of that." So then you go, "Well, The silence you're getting then is feedback. The silence they're either telling you is either I don't trust you or the reason that you're asking the question, or I don't feel safe enough in this environment to be able to speak up and
Yeah.
feel that it'll be heard or respected. So
Yeah.
which, like,
Psychological
which one
safety.
is it? And then when Liz go, oh, I've not thought of that. And you go, right, so
Yeah.
let's start working on let's
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
working on the trust and the psychological safety of the environment that you're in, rather than just
Yeah.
labeling other people as dead quiet.
It's interesting that, isn't it? As well as kids, is it a fear of the consequences? And sometimes it's not fear from the manager; it'd be fear from their own peer group owner of kids they play football with. Will I look stupid? Will I? Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
So
mate,
you create a safe environment for them, then they're more likely to speak up.
I was reading a huge, it was a meta-analysis recently about 1,600 people, and they were saying that the role of the coach is far, far less significant than the role of your peer group.
Yeah,
In a sporting environment, so that's why you need
yeah,
leaders around you, like cultural architects is the phrase from the Norwegian psychologist Willie Raylio, that role models the behaviours that you want everybody else to demonstrate.
yeah, yeah. And on the basis of that, then, because we're flipping then from maybe the kids to organizations. So when you think about micro habits, how does that relate then to the organizational stuff?
Well, again, we sort of look at this. So what we've done in the book is we've divided it up into different chapters. So some of it is about how do you get the best out of yourself, and then some of it is then how do you get the best out of other people around you in your team or your organization. And again, there's lots of little micro habits so that we explore. Like we interviewed the chef Marcus Waring,
Yeah,
and he talks about um, advice that his dad gave him. His dad went, find the best person doing the job that you want to do
yeah,
and study them, hang around them, question them, explore, be a sponge, because they'll teach you stuff that they're already doing it. You'll teach you. So you go, that was really obvious. Well, that's what I said to you. That's a micro habit. It's simple. And
yeah,
you go in,
yeah,
but how rarely do we do it? Do we go and find the best people we can? So Marcus Waring's one is go and find the person operating at the top of the game and hang around with them. Then we interviewed Gordon Ramsay. So Gordon Ramsay was the one that Marcus Waring says I spotted him and hung around with him,
yeah,
and that was led to his own success. When we interviewed Gordon Ramsay was like, "We've got to get better at giving and receiving feedback."
yeah,
So
yeah,
in our teams, we have to. So he was like, getting feedback is good. Getting feedback, and he was talking about, but you have to be really careful of who you're going to get feedback from. So like the Marcus Warren one of find the best people. Ramsey was like, I find the best people, and then I'm a sponge. I'm like, give me feedback. I want you constantly. If you've got to tell me off, because it's the way I receive it. Now, again, the research on this is interesting, Paul, because what it says is we use that term, and I've just used it here liberally, like feedback. Feedback doesn't actually work, right?
yeah,
There was a big meta-analysis by a psychologist called Sinead Nin that looked at like nearly 100 years of evidence and says it doesn't really move the dial when somebody goes, Paul, what you did on that last occasion
yeah,
could have been better and things like that.
yeah,
Feed forward is the game changer. So if I was to go, Paul, what I would do in the future is this,
yeah,
that does move the dial because it's future focused rather than reflective,
yeah,
and it's helping you change your habit.
yeah,
So again, we go back to the Ramsey stuff. What Ramsey was telling us was that feeding forward, surround yourself, find the best people in your team,
yeah,
and then go and ask them to help you to feed forward. What can I do better in relation to it? So again, there's two really simple micro habits that are there. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that we spoke to around this, but there was like lots of them. Like Simon Sinek, when we interviewed him, was talking about again similar to getting feed forward off people. He talks about go and select your best friend, go and find who your best like somebody that really matters and understand the why. Why are you my friend? What do I bring to you? What's the qualities that I bring to this relationship that you can't get anywhere else? And the more you ask that, you find out your own superpower. And he said you have to keep pursuing it, and it can be uncomfortable. But
yeah,
when Paul, why do you value my company? No, no, go deeper. Because then he said most people start the surface level, but what they're describing is an emotion that they get when they're in your company. An emotion doesn't have a language. So you
yeah,
need to push a bit harder until people are capable of giving you that. So there's like loads and loads of these small things that we
Yeah,
can do in
yeah.
organizations that can help us get even better.
So on the basis then of the book itself, then you go. No, you kind of started with this because you started talking about a little micro habit that you have started to change. Is there anything there? Because we look at it reflection. You've written a book. Would be the one or two things that you personally have taken away from the book that you've changed, or micro habits you've changed?
Yeah. Well, like, you'd almost have to be stupid, I think, not to absorb it when you're writing it, because I spent like a year just delved in the research. So the more
Yeah,
you read in it, you're more like, yeah, why am I doing this? And so eventually, like however resistant you are, just the absorption of it meant that I naturally started picking up stuff that was like, yeah, I could do this. Like there's a lovely line from Maro Itoje, the British Lions rugby union captain and the England rugby union captain as well. He had this great line that nothing you do is neutral.
yeah,
Nothing you do is neutral, Paul. So everything is either enhancing a situation or eroding it.
right.
So
Yeah,
what he talks about is that in his world, he says, I will never criticize a skill error because if you drop a ball, that's a skill error, right? We'll
yeah,
have to teach you the technique of how you catch the ball better. But what I will criticize is if I don't see you trying, it's an effort error.
right.
So
Okay.
if you don't run back in line with everyone else,
Yeah,
that's game for criticism because that's that's almost a conscious decision that you were tired and therefore you decided not uh, to get back in line and train to get there. If you
yeah,
catch the ball, that's a skill error and that's done.
yeah,
So then I started finding the research on this from a guy called Roy Baumeister. He's a University of Florida psychologist, and the evidence is there that
yeah,
when you praise somebody for or praise or criticize somebody for a skill error, you likely diminish their quality of the performance next time. So if
yeah,
I criticize you, say like for kicking a ball, and I
yeah,
go, Paul, that was really good there. I make what's become unconscious conscious, and you'll probably be a bit more jerky, and the
yeah,
flow won't happen.
yeah,
But if I praise you for making an effort and go, Paul, the way you ran back there and you really tried to do it, that actually improves your performance because now you know that I've spotted it. We do it. So
right.
just getting into the habit of don't criticize skill,
Yeah,
but praise performance, catch people in, not catch them out, and just learning to get better with that. And then you start thinking like I've enjoyed doing it in like any environment you're in. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like you,
yeah, yeah,
like say you go out for tea somewhere, and you can see member of staff. Just go. I can see you're working really hard there, and I really appreciate
right. Yeah,
your time. And just sort of think about how do you enhance the environment rather than erode it, rather than, oh, it's taking you ages to get
right.
this to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Think
Great
how
advice. Yeah,
how can you add rather than take away? So
yeah,
that's a big one. Another one is nick this from a guy called Will Gadara. He's one of my favorite ever interviews.
yeah,
Will is the head of 11 Madison Avenue. It's the world's number one restaurant. And he has this lovely line that culture is caught and not taught.
yeah,
So you have to catch people doing things right and then freeze for a moment
yeah,
and go, I love what you did there. Would
yeah,
the more you did that, this is how it made me feel, and give people that emotional connection to what they've just done.
yeah,
So I'll tell you a nice story about it. That just before COVID, right, I got a call off the company that runs the world's number one restaurant. It's 11 Madison Avenue, but
yeah,
like Will Gadara ran it, and he did it alongside the world's number one chef, a guy called Daniel Hum. Right, and I got a call off Daniel Hum's team, and they were opening a restaurant in Claridge's.
yeah,
Yeah, and they were saying, "Oh, can you come down? Is there any help you can give us?" And I just didn't have the capacity to do it at the time, so I said, I'm sorry, I'd love to do it, but unfortunately, I can't. So it was a really nice conversation. I put the phone down, and as soon as I put the phone down, I thought, I've got a mate that would love that. I've got a mate, my mate Bob. He runs a lovely cafe near us, right? But he's so passionate about chefing. Like he's
yeah,
been a chef since he was 16, right? That's what he loves to do.
yeah,
So I phoned Bob up and I went, Bob, if I could get you working in the kitchen to the world's number one restaurant with the world's number one chef, is that of any interest to you? Right. And he said, that'd be like you getting invited to have a kickabout with Manchester United for a laugh. He's like, of course it would.
Yeah,
So I phoned them back and I went, you know what? I've changed my mind. I can come down and work with you. I said, but I've got a bit of a strange condition. And he went, what is it? And I went, told him, I said, I'd like my mate Bob to get the chance to come into the kitchens and work with Daniel. Right.
yeah, yeah,
So they went, no problem, we'd love that. So me and Bob jumped on the train. We go around to London. We're in Claridge's, a couple of Manchester lads. Like
yeah,
it
yeah,
was,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
we're
Boys are
we're
in
there
town.
thinking, hang on a minute, we're gonna get kicked out. So we turn up in Claridge's, and honestly, Paul, like
Yeah,
the, we talk about these micro habits, but when you see them done so effortlessly,
yeah, yeah,
impacts it made on me was huge. Like they treated my mate Bob right? Like a peer. That's the best way I can describe it, right? So
yeah,
there's a status imbalance here. You've got the world's number one chef, and you've got a mate of mine coming down. So naturally, there's a status imbalance that was never ever addressed. They were just like, Bob, come and sit down. This is our menu today. What do you think we should be doing? And my
yeah,
mate was like, I don't know. And they were like, yes, you do know, Bob. You're working with us. You're an elite chef like us. We want to pick your brains. Honestly, but it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in action.
yeah,
That my
wow.
mate
Yeah,
walked out at the end of that day,
yeah,
100 foot tall,
cool. Yeah, yeah,
walked out of there, seeing himself as an elite chef, and he is an amazing chef. So this
yeah,
doesn't diminish his talent,
yeah,
but because he'd been put in an environment where the micro habits and standards were just so elevated, there was
yeah,
no shouting, no effing and blinding. It was speaking to each other with respect as professionals. The
yeah,
quality of the product they were serving, like it was a bit lost on me. It was a bit too posh the food,
yeah,
but
yeah,
but I could
yeah,
appreciate
yeah,
like the like the craftsmanship that went behind it.
yeah,
But when you see this, like my mate walked out, he still talks about it now. Like
yeah,
5 years later, he's still raving about the impact that had and how he learned habits that he's taken into his own practice. So I
yeah,
think micro habits are stuff that when people see it in action,
yeah,
like it just needs somebody to be the
yeah,
catalyst,
yeah,
somebody to go, I could do that, I could do that, I could do that. And then when other people are on the receiving end of it, they start doing it, and you create this lovely virtuous circle.
yeah. It's interesting because straight away in my mind I was thinking about where the environment's been, where it felt like that either, say playing sport, playing football, where you played with better players around you, and
Yeah.
their not just their play, their behaviours that go with it, and it's been an absolute play. And then in the working
Well,
environments where you felt safe to speak your mind, you've got that culture where everyone, it's an adult to adult culture, and you go those micro habits of professionalism, the way they play
oh,
out, the way it makes you
well,
feel.
I sometimes think of this. Like when you think about football, like do you remember when Diego Maradona died?
Yeah, yeah,
Right,
yeah,
like Liam Brady had played with him. You know, like the Irish footballer Liam Brady. He'd played with him, and he wrote this really beautiful article about him afterwards. And he said the thing that made Maradona great was he said he never berated or shouted or humiliated one of his teammates. And
right.
and and so when I saw him do it, I started looking at all footage of him, and he went, like obviously he was the greatest player, some would argue of all
Ah,
time, right?
I
So
think so. Yeah,
yeah, so he's always going to be the best player on the pitch. He's always going to be the best player on your team.
yeah,
And Liam Bailey said he never once made you feel less than him. He never, if you made a mistake, he never shouted, he never threw his hands up in the air, never
right.
rolled his eyes, he never remonstrated.
Yeah,
He'd often just encourage you, clap you, come on and get back and do
yeah,
it. And he went, that's what made him a great player.
yeah.
Now, we could talk about his
He's more of a
skills,
god
we
for me
could talk
now.
about you are.
He's more of a god for me now because he was just
100% to me as
amazing.
well.
Yeah,
To me as well.
yeah,
But if
yeah,
you ever look at any of the old footage, since
yeah,
Liam Brady wrote that article, I thought he's absolutely right that he's elevating people to try and get them to his level. He's not
yeah,
pushing them down to remind them how great he is. He's not doing it at the expense of you.
yeah,
He's going, no, no, we can all be better here. And I
yeah,
think that's when you, to go back to your original question about the micro habits, it's about how do you elevate the situation? How do you enhance it rather than erode it?
yeah,
And we can do that by just thinking about catching people in, not catching them out. You know, that idea of culture is caught, not taught.
yeah,
These are the habits that I've tried to do
yeah.
that and I've tried to incorporate into my own life.
Brilliant. Well, I'm going to close off with one last question, but
Go on.
before I get to the last question, I just wanted to say again, please do pick up Damian's book. It's amazing. Is another. I mean, every single book that you've wrote, I've loved, by the way. But
Thank you.
another great book. Look, just last piece of advice then to the listener, if they're listening in. Obviously, you've given lots of pieces already, but what would be the last piece?
Oh, you know what? Don't underestimate this idea of just showing up. Like I think it was Woody Allen. I don't know if we can quote him these days, but Woody Allen who said it. 80% of success in life is just turning up.
Yeah,
And I think don't underestimate the idea of the consistency, the compound effects of just doing one small thing consistently well.
yeah,
That's what the micro habits have taught me. That so many of our guests have said, "I'm not the most talented. I'm not the cleverest. I'm not the most connected. I'm not the ones with the deepest pockets, but I am good at this one thing, and I've built a life and a career around doing that one thing and then showing up and being consistent." Now that's going to be different for all of us. One of my favorite questions is asking people, not how clever are you, but how are you clever? Because that forces you to think about yourself in different ways. Everyone's clever,
yeah,
but we're all clever and it manifests itself in different ways. So getting you to go, so how do you build a life around about what makes you clever?
yeah,
Or what
yeah,
makes you unique, what makes what you've got to offer
yeah,
so special. And
yeah,
then just show up. Just
yeah.
do that.
Yeah, brilliant advice. It's interesting just to add to that is that sometimes asking the question, what makes you remarkable? And actually challenging someone to
Oh,
answer the question, that can be really powerful as well.
that's brilliant. I love that. Because again, like if you're like me on this, like your instinct is I'm not remarkable at anything. So
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
like that self-deference sort of kicks in, you know what I mean? Like that deprecation. But then but actually, why shouldn't you answer it? Do you know what I mean? Like, why
yeah,
shouldn't you and get
definitely.
people beyond that initial discomfort to go, no, let's push forward. What a
Yeah.
lovely question. So go on, you tell it like, why are you remarkable, Paul?
Yeah, it's right. Thanks for putting me on the spot there. Yeah, so
Sorry, go on.
it's interesting when you ask people because some people, and I will answer the question by the way. I'm when you
You're
ask,
jabbing me here. In
yeah,
boxing terms,
yeah.
you're jabbing, just
No,
waiting for
no,
that
no, no.
opening.
Yeah, yeah. It's that because a lot of people will say I struggle to answer the question because, and you go, but actually, what I want you to do then, if you're struggling now, is just take it away and come back to me and tell me what really makes you
Yeah,
remarkable in
yeah,
life. Yeah. And you go, and if you ask yourself, I look at it and think, at the end of the day, I see myself as a nice person. Does that make me remarkable? It makes me remarkable in the way that I can impact other people's lives and be kind and to give. And you go, I'm quite creative by nature. Does that make me remarkable? There's other creative people out there, but I've applied my creativity in a way that is maybe different to other people. So you go, that maybe makes me a little bit different. Do I think I'm better than anybody else? No, I don't. That
no,
kind
no,
of makes me
but
remarkable in a way, right?
yeah, but asking what makes you remarkable doesn't imply that that means that you're better than anyone, does it? It just means
No,
it's
yeah,
not what makes you remarkable. And I think what I'm hearing from what you're saying here is it's you're remarkable to the people that matter to you, that deserve
that's
to see your remarkableness,
yeah,
like the kids, like Rachel.
yeah,
You know what I mean? You're
yeah,
remarkably kind to them. You're remarkably creative to them. You're remarkably
yeah,
hardworking to them. That,
yeah. I
what a
know.
what a
Yeah.
lovely
Do,
answer.
do you know and I'll just, this is my close to this, it is when I was young, I was on a course and the question was around, what you're going to do in your life type thing. And I put down, I'm going to change the world. And everybody on the table that I've sat with went, you can't do that. And I went, well, why can't I change the world? Because I might not be able to change the world the way that you're thinking about it. But what if I just change one person's life? Or what if I just change
Yeah,
someone's thinking? What if I, write a book or, whatever it might be that you go where you do create some form of change in other people's lives? Isn't that changing the world? And that's a micro habit rather than maybe thinking on a macro level, if you know what I mean, is that I'm changing
absolutely.
things. So for me, that was always, but it's amazing how at times, and don't get me wrong, a lot of people are very kind in life, but just sometimes when you make a statement like that, how people can put the barrier up to you straight away. And
Yeah, yeah.
if you believe them, you're going to stop, right? So my viewpoint is I didn't believe, I just thought I can change the world my own way. And that's what my intentions
Love
always want
that.
to do. And you
Who are
know,
you not to? That's that quote from Nelson Mandela, isn't it? That,
yeah,
like, who are
yeah,
you not to, like playing small doesn't serve anyone. You
yeah.
know, like who are you not to do this? I love that.
Definitely. And what was it? I don't know. I was listening to something not too long back, and it was, in 100 years' time, or let's say 200 years' time, nobody's going to know that you were here, right? So you go, "Well,
Yeah,
what the hell? What the hell? Enjoy your life. Make the most of it. Make the most of every single day, and be the best that you can be, or be as remarkable as you can be. That's the be kind more than anything, though. That's it.
I
It's
love
nice to be
that.
nice, isn't it?
I remember Jake said to me once, I was nervous about something when we were doing a show, and he said, "What's the name of your grandparents?" So I said, "Oh, it was Eileen and Teresa," and he went, "What's the name of your great grandparents?" And I was like, "I don't know. I don't know who their parents was," and he went, "They only existed 100 years ago, or maybe like 120 years ago."
Yeah,
And he went, "And you don't even know who they are. You don't even know the name, let alone anything about them."
yeah.
And he was like, "Just put it in perspective. Let's just go do our best." And it was such a lovely way of reframing it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah,
That's the realism of life, isn't it? At the end of the day, you go to make the most of it. Wake up with a smile on your face. That's you're here, aren't you? Some people aren't. So that's
yeah.
excellent. Well, listen, thanks very much. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast show, Damien. As always, great insights. So I genuinely, massively appreciate it.
Mate, the appreciation is mine to give to you. I know how much hard work and commitment and preparation goes into producing a podcast like this. So thank you for doing it. If anyone's listened this far into my witterings, thank you for sticking with us. But you know what? Thanks for having me, Paul. It's a real pleasure just to be in your company and to get a chance to chat. So it's an absolute privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. Great stuff.